On average, every year there's more than 4.5 million people that will become victims of dog bites. In some years, we've seen up to 70% of those victims as children. Welcome, everyone, to our 23rd Philadelphia Accident and Injury Google Hangout. My name is Renee, and today Rand Spear, Philadelphia's accident lawyer, will be joining us to talk about dog bites, the kinds of injuries they cause, and why we need to be especially careful now as summer rapidly approaches. Hey Rand, how are things going in Philadelphia today?
Oh, it's a beautiful sunny day, Renee. Happy to be here, and I look forward to speaking with everyone.
Oh, great to hear that. Rand, as Philadelphia's accident lawyer for more than 30 years, I'm sure that you've seen your fair share of dog bite victims. Can you shed some light on why there are so many dog bites in the summer than any other time of the year?
Well, I think to a large degree it's really just common sense. In the wintertime, dogs are kept inside, they're indoors, so you really don't have that problem. And when it's cold out, the owners put the dog on a leash, they take the dog for a walk, the dog is under control at all times, and these types of injuries are kept to a minimum. But that all changes in the summer. The dogs are out and about, they're left in the yard, they're out in the street. Owners become much more lax, and that attributes to a lot of the injuries that we're seeing. The dogs, for one reason or another, they become more aggressive in the summer. And we also find that a lot of the injuries are to children. Children very often are getting bitten by dogs. They're not aware of the dog's propensity. The owner is putting the dog in close proximity to the children and not taking necessary precautions. And then all of a sudden, there's a terrible bite, and the kid is rushed to the hospital, and it just goes on from there.
Yeah, I came across an interesting statistic by the CDC that by the age of 12, half of all children in the U.S. will have been bitten by a dog. I thought that was unbelievable.
Unfortunately, that is an accurate statistic. We do get so many children that are, and unfortunately, a lot of the bites seem to be in the facial area. The dogs seem to go for the face or the limbs. And, you know, the bites can be really very nasty. They can be permanent. They can cause nerve damage, scarring, permanency. So it's really very important to take immediate action. Get the child, or whoever got bitten, over to a hospital right away. Make sure it's not infected. Make sure it's thoroughly cleaned out. You know, a lot of these dog bites result in people getting MRSA, which is really terrible. So you really want to take every precaution that you can when something like this happens to someone close to you. You want to take necessary action, get them over to a hospital. Sometimes they want to check out the dog, see if the dog is up to date with its shots, has any type of conditions or diseases, so that they know how to treat the patient in the hospital and give them necessary antibiotics and monitor the health of the victim to make sure that it doesn't become an even more dangerous situation.
Yeah, in a recent Los Angeles Times article, they say there's up to 30 different infectious diseases that come from the bites of dogs and cats. So, yeah, I hear what you're saying about that. I understand that the laws covering dog bites distinguish between dogs that have had prior bad behavior, unless the injuries are severe. Can you explain how the laws work and how you're able to prosecute a dog bite case?
Sure. In other words, the law says if a dog does not have a propensity to be dangerous and harmful and has never harmed anyone before, then how can we hold the owner responsible because they never knew that the dog had a propensity to be dangerous and harm someone, so therefore they may not be negligent. But more often than not, there's usually, when you look at the facts of a particular case, there's usually enough evidence there in which we are able to go after the owner and we are able to seek fair compensation for what happened to our client. You know, a lot of bites occur with pit bulls, which are inherently more aggressive than other animals. And so the owners really should be very careful with pit bulls, especially around strangers or people that the dog never saw before or doesn't know, because there is that propensity for the dog to bite and cause damage. So we find in most of the cases, you know, an aggressive dog has exhibited behavior in the past, and that is generally sufficient for us to be able to bring a cause of action and get the medical bills paid. And some of these cases are quite large. If there's a scarring, if it's permanent, if there's nerve damage, you know, there's a lot of injury that happens when there's a dog bite. And usually what we do is we look at the homeowner's policy, because generally speaking, someone's homeowner policy will cover this type of injury. So that's what we do. We put the owner on notice. We see where they live. Is it in an apartment building? Perhaps the owner of the apartment has some responsibility. Maybe they knew about this particular animal and its propensity to cause harm, and they allowed it to remain in the apartment. So there's all kinds of factors that we look at and take into consideration in order to determine the full extent of the defendant's responsibility for what the dog did to our client.
You talked about some of the facial and limb injuries that you've witnessed. Are they the most common? How serious can they be? Also, how about psychological trauma? I'm sure if a young child's been bitten, he's going to remember that for the rest of his life.
Oh, absolutely. The trauma is, the psychological portion of it should never be ignored. And we always discuss that with the parents or the guardian when they come in. We want to give the child every opportunity to recover from what happened to them. And a lot of times they have nightmares, and they don't eat well, and they stop performing well in school, and they don't want to go outside and play with their friends. They're afraid they're going to be attacked again by a dog. So there are many professional experts, psychologists, that are specializing in this type of problem. And they meet and talk to the child and work things out and do the best they can to rehabilitate the child so that they can go on and live a normal life. Because if you really ignore it, it really can have a very negative impact on the quality of their life. And so that's something that we always want to take into consideration.
Are there specific steps that your firm goes through to go about proving a dog's owner liability? I know you talked a little bit about it. How do you try to maximize the results for your clients? You know, things like that I think the public would like to know.
Well, number one, we want to get pictures. As soon as we can get pictures of the dog bite, the scarring, everything and anything we can, the clothes. We want to interview any witnesses to the attack. We want to know as much information about the kind of dog it is, the circumstances of how the attack occurred. And so what we do is we start putting a case together from the very beginning. And we put everyone on notice that we think has any potential responsibility or liability. And we want to start to talk to the insurance companies involved and let them know what our intentions are. And then, of course, we try to resolve it. And if we can't, then we promptly want to bring a lawsuit and present all the evidence. And, you know, we usually have a good success record with these types of cases.
There's been some record settlement years. State Farm reported up to $118 million in dog-related injury claims, so it seems to be pretty prevalent. Do you have any recommendations that might help dog bite victims?
Well, you know, my recommendation is to just be on guard. You know, try to prevent being a dog bite victim. Now, you can't in every instance. Sometimes the dogs are left unattended. They're not properly secured on a leash, and there's practically nothing you can do to avoid being attacked. But if you come upon a situation where you see a dog for the first or second time and you're really not familiar with the dog, don't go right up to the dog and start playing with the dog and petting with the dog and jumping all over the dog and expect that the dog is a friendly dog. You know, if your children are in the area, caution them to be very careful, to make sure that you know what type of dog, what type of animal you're dealing with. Ask the owner, is the dog friendly? Can my child pet the dog? Because even though the dog may not be on a leash or, you know, doesn't appear to be a dangerous dog, you know, you just never know, and you want to really take all necessary precautions to protect yourself.
I think being forever vigilant is the key. I had young children. I was always very concerned when we were, you know, coming by strange dogs. The last thing I ever wanted to have happen is, you know, one of my child, you know, be bitten by a dog. If you have a case in Pennsylvania or New Jersey related to any accident or injury, please call Rand Spear, the accident lawyer, at 888-373-4LAW. Or you can always visit the firm at www.randspear.com. Rand, it's always a pleasure, you know, having you come on the show and share your experience with the audience.
Thanks, Renee. It's great to speak with you and the audience, and I look forward to doing it again in the near future.
I want to thank everyone that made this possible. I invite everyone to come back next week when we'll be discussing a new and important topic. That's all for now. Goodbye. But before we go, remember, information contained in this video should not be construed as legal advice. Content is for information purposes only. Nothing contained herein shall constitute an attorney-client relationship.